Welcome to How to Prompt with Chatgpt and Make.com. I'm making this video because over the year I've been working with Make.com to build complex workflows for different clients and Chatgpt. And it was one thing that I'm learning is that there is a certain magic in the prompt. And if we can get better at writing prompts, then it will make our life a whole lot easier. So that's what this video is all about. It's all about getting you to improve the way you prompt, right? So let's just jump into prompt engineering. What is it? Well, I think when I heard about the term prompt engineering, I just thought it was made up and I didn't really think anything of it. But after working with ChatGPT and building these complex workflows such as report automation and these classifying workflows, I think there is a certain ability to get more out of the model. And that's what really prompt engineering is all about. It's about guiding these different AI models such as ChatGPT and giving these models more context in the prompt, right? Giving them more instruction around what it is that we're looking to arrive to. So we're looking for a specific response, a desired output. So it's important that we can work with these models because they can get really expensive, and we want to make sure that when we're working with them, we're really efficient and we can prompt them accurately, consistently every time our workflow will run. So why is it important? There are a couple of reasons why it's important, but I think it's important to realize that when we are prompt engineering, we're not really training the model. Rather, we're just getting more out of it, right? And we're getting more out of it because of the context that we're providing in the prompt. So, it's important that with every prompt, we provide a little bit more clarity and structure. So I'm going to go into specific techniques and things that we can do, but just for example, using roles, right? Using a role in your prompt really helps the model to know, who's saying what and what is crucial in the output of what it is that you're trying to, get out of it. So let's say, for example, that you would have heard it, right? You are an expert marketing professional. Please write a onboarding email to guide this client to do X, right? Just that level of clarity will help the model understand what it needs to produce as an output, right? So what else, right? We want to give the model more context. We want to make sure that we delineate the difference between what is a instruction, summarize this paragraph in 100 words, versus read this paragraph and tell me the answer to this specific question, right? What is its role, right? And the more context that we give it, the better its result is going to be. So this is the beauty of working with these models, right? You can work with them and give it no context and it can just come up with an answer. It can, if you ask it, why is the sky blue? It will just, come up with an answer. But I think over time, when you're working with these models, you'll find that, if you don't give it any context, then it will just begin to make up an answer that sounds great, right? And this is when you get these scenarios of hallucinations and all these kind of things. So context is important, and we can always make the context of our prompt better, especially in a workflow. If you think about a workflow, it's a series of steps that are occurring over a repetitive nature, and we can get better at scheduling and putting right context in the prompt, right? So why might we want to have better prompts? Is it just gives us better control, right? We're going to have better output. So that's just a little background around prompt engineering. I'm not going to go into the details of it too much. I'm just going to jump into the juicy bits. So let's continue. Okay, so there's a power behind prompt engineering, and I just want to talk about some of the use cases. Where do we use ChatGPT in our workflow or any other AI model? What can we use these models for, and what are they good for? So, the first one is text summarization. This is one of the biggest benefits to working with models like ChatGPT, is just because we can summarize a whole bunch of text and make it sound simple. We can simplify things. And if you think about it, it takes humans a long time to read information, understand it, then digest it, and then come up with a unique perspective and understanding around how does this information relate to the user who needs to read this information, and then, so on and so forth, right? Like, it takes ages to do this as a human, but with ChatGPT, with these AI models, we can easily just get to the main points very quickly. So if you think about it in a workflow, that is very effective. And I'll talk about some examples around, how we could do this effectively in our prompt. Another thing is question and answering, right? Just like how you would have done a comprehension test when you were going to school, they ask you a bunch of questions and you have to read a bit of text, and then the questions that you're being asked is based on the text that it's been presented for you to read, and then you go through and answer the questions, right? So you get graded on whether you got them right or wrong, right? So you can do the same thing with ChatGPT. You can give it a bunch of information and ask it, what am I looking at? Can you pull out this example? Can you do X, right? Quite similarly to Google, right? Google indexes the whole internet, and you ask it a question and it will come up with a result. So this is getting more fine-tuned with, our specific information for our workflow, right? And question and answering is a very powerful functionality that you can leverage with ChatGPT and these different AI models. The other one is role-playing, right? Sometimes role-playing helps. I think when it comes to working with different workflows, it can help with the level of output that you get. For example, if you are a doctor, or if you're a lawyer, or if you have a specific field expertise or domain in which you are trying to sound like a particular person, role-playing definitely helps. And it's interesting some of the, outputs that you can get just by acting as a certain role. And it can change the conversation. It can change the output. So, if you think about a human, they have a role, right? They are a marketing assistant, they are an executive, they are playing a role, right? So having these roles, having context about them really helps when we are looking at building complex workflows, because you could take the role of a marketing assistant and then that could go to a copywriting assistant, and then that can go to a marketing manager. And you can kind of begin to understand that, okay, well, if this information is passing different roles, different hands, different prompts, then, the level of output that we're going to get is one that is a collaborative output, right? So just something to think about. The other one is text classification. This one is huge if you think about anything that involves reading information. Like, take for example an IT ticketing system. You might be getting so many different tickets, and how would you go about classifying each ticket and then routing each ticket to the right person or to a specific workflow? And you can do this really easily with make.com and ChatGPT, and I will go through a example of this. The other thing is code generation. I'm not a dev, and I don't plan to be one, but it is helpful to work with these different models and to help output different types of code, like for example HTML and CSS. It's very easy to get ChatGPT to produce these kind of outputs. So let's just continue. So you would have seen on the internet there are a bunch of different prompt frameworks that are floating around, and that's great that we're getting a bit more context and more structure in writing these prompts. But to keep things simple, the most effective prompts are those that are clear, concise, specific, include examples of exactly what a response should look like. And I think this is a really great summary for how we can just improve our own prompts. So I just wanted to share that. Let's just jump into the following details around the different roles of a prompt, right? So you would have seen when you set up a ChatGPT module in make.com, you'll see system, user, and assistant. And you'll see it in different models as well. So if you're using Perplexity or if you're using Cohere, they also will inherit these different types of roles. And I just want to talk about, what are these, right? So basically, what is that system role? So that system role is basically there to help you give more context to the model, right? If you're writing out any instructions, if you're trying to, set a specific role, for example, you are a marketing assistant. Please summarize this in this tone of voice. Please avoid using these specific types of words. Please ensure you use these types of words. If there's any example of the response that you're looking for, where you've had good customer experiences, you might want to put that in that system role. So really what we're doing is we're giving the model more context about what it is that we're looking for, right? And for example, this is one. You are a doctor's assistant in charge of summarizing his notes. Please ensure you avoid using certain words such as treatment and issue. Please ensure your tone of voice is professional and that your response is written from a first-hand perspective of the patient. That's an example, right? And then, you would then set up what that next role would be. So we're going to talk about that is the user role, right? So we are the user. So when we are prompting ChatGPT, when we're asking it questions, we act as that user role. And in make.com and ChatGPT, we can define what goes in that user role, right? Typically, it's like asking questions, we're making statements. We are basically using this user role most of the time, pretty much every time. Example, can you summarize the following text? And, we've got the text example there. If I just let's just jump into make.com and I can show you where these are, right? So here it is, right? We've got the system role and we've got a user role, right? And if we add another one, we've got that assistant role, which I'm going to start talking about. So let's go to the assistant. So we've got the third role, which is the assistant. So the assistant is the voice of the model. So when you get that response back, that is the assistant role, right? And it's basically there as another section of the prompt where you can further guide and enhance your response. And I'll talk about how I've kind of used the assistant role. So this is how I've used it in the past, is in your response, please start with the following words, the 3 core issues, right? And then it will come up with the 3 core issues. Now, I think when I was working with ChatGPT and these different prompts, I always got a bit confused around, well, what is the main difference between a system prompt and the assistant role? And I think they're both quite similar, but basically what I believe is that I think you can use the system prompt to provide more context about the issue, and you could probably put most of the context that you give in that assistant role in that system prompt, but you might find that there might be a better opportunity to put that context in that assistant bucket. So it's not really clear in terms of when you should use the assistant bucket, because you could just put that information in the system, in that system section. But I think using a mixture of both is going to really help you come up with examples that match what you're looking for. So because the assistant is basically giving us the response, right? So if we can fine tune and give that assistant a little bit more context around how to kind of open that statement, then it might help with the response we get at the end of the day. So let's just jump into some examples. I've pulled a lot of these examples from the Chatgpt prompt library, and I would encourage you to just log on and go through all of the many different examples. So the first tactic is to ask the model to adopt a persona. So for this prompt, where we would do that is at that system level. And what we're doing at the system level here is we are asking for, in our response, for the response to include one joke and playful comments in every paragraph, right? And then at that user level, we are getting the model to write a thank you note. So the persona is really important, right? And we can do that at that system level. So what we're going to get as a result is we're going to get a thank you note consistently every time with these jokes and playful comments in every paragraph, right? And you're beginning to get an understanding around, you know, why might we put more context at that system level? Because, you know, in this context, in this scenario, we are a bit lighthearted. We just want to make sure that, you know, we establish good rapport with our, in this case, our steel ball vendor, right? So adopt a persona at that system level, right? Well, that's one thing we can do to improve our prompts. So another one that's quite common that you'll find when you're building different workflows is to summarize different texts. And we can use these delimited triple quotes example here, right? Summarize the text delimited by triple quotes with a haiku, and then insert the text. So you might want to use this just because in the summary that you get back from your prompt or from Chatgpt, you don't want this text, you know, in that summary. You want this specific text. So this is really useful. We can kind of place that and manipulate that wherever we like. And in our prompt in Chatgpt, we can kind of put the right text where it needs to be. We can put a variable here using make.com, and I will show you an example of how that could work. So let's continue. Okay, so the next one is to ask the model to begin to specify specific steps required to complete a task. And this is when you start to really get more out of the model, right? So in this context, I'll just read it. So using the following step-by-step instructions to respond to user inputs. Step 1. The user will provide you with text in triple quotes. Summarize this text in one sentence with a prefix that says summary, and then the summary will be there. Step 2. Translate the summary from step 1 into Spanish with a prefix that says translation, right? And then the user prompt includes that text, right? And we're asking at that user level, read through the entire text, extract the most important paragraph in this text. From the paragraph extracted in step 2, extract the most important sentence, right? So getting very specific with what we want. We want the most important sentence, right? Summarize the sentence extracted in step 3 and make it between 30 to 50 words long. Only return the result of step 4 in your response, right? So what we are getting back is the most important sentence, right? And we're making sure that that sentence is within this word limit. So you can begin to get an understanding around how breaking things up into specific steps will help the model really give you what you are looking for. Because sometimes what's happening is that the model is just trying to give you a response, the best response. And when you can sequence your steps like this, then you can really get the model to, you really guide the model, right? In terms of what it is that you're looking for. So this is a technique that you can use. All right. So this is one I'm going to showcase as well. And I think this is one, I think if you begin to understand this, then this is really going to help you with your prompting, and it's really going to help you with building complex workflows in make.com. So this is a very simple task. What we're doing is that we have a online e-commerce store, right? And we're trying to handle these different customer service inquiries. And what we want to do is we just want to be able to classify each inquiry that we're getting, because we get thousands of emails a day, hypothetically. I'm just saying it as an example. So what we're doing in this prompt is we're at a system level, we're telling the system that, you know, your job is to be a customer service inquiry manager, right? And we want you to categorize each of the different inquiries into a primary category and a secondary category. And we want the output to be in a JSON format with the following keys, right? And we're giving it a bit more context. So this is how you might categorize, you know, the different types of inquiries you get. Billing inquiries, you get technical support inquiries, account management inquiries, right? And then the actual prompt, it could be the actual inquiry that we've gotten, right? So I'm going to actually just go through this as an example, because I've just built this in make.com, right? And let's just go through this example, right? So what I've done is just to make it really easy, I have a spreadsheet and I have a bunch of different user inquiries. I've got like 50 user inquiries, and I've got my primary category 1 and I have my primary category 2. So what we're getting the model to do is what specifically? Let's have a look. So using make.com, we're going to search all of those different rows, and then we're going to get Chatgpt. What I've done is I've just provided that system prompt where we talked about the different primary categories and those secondary categories, and it's all that context that was in that prompt before. I've just copy pasted it into here. And then at that user level, that's where the user inquiry is going to be. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to read that user inquiry from that Google Sheet. It's going to categorize it. And then remember, what we wanted was we wanted the output to be in a JSON object, just so then we can neatly work with that information, right? So we can structure the JSON, we can select the response format to be a JSON object. And even though we did it at that system level, make.com offer this as well, so I'd suggest you just use this as well. Sometimes I find that if you don't select JSON object here, it might not respond in a JSON object. I don't know, for some reason it's just not consistent for some reason, but we can just make sure that we select this here. So what's going to happen is we're going to then categorize each of the responses. We're going to pass that JSON object, and then we're going to update our Google Sheet, right? Because we want to update our Google Sheet. So it's a very simple workflow, but if you think about it, we get a lot of inquiries, and being able to sort through these different inquiries and trigger then custom workflows based on the response we get. This is where, you know, your systems get more sophisticated, and this is where the fun begins. This is where the magic happens with make.com. So let's just run this, and then we can see it working. So that's just going to run. Hopefully it's going to do something. Okay, so it's beginning to classify. And if I go here, so you can see here, right? My automation is running and it's beginning to classify each of these user inquiries. And hopefully it will just do all of it and not error out. Looks like it's still working. And yeah, you can see it kind of working, right? General inquiry, product information. And then we can do cool things where, if it's a billing related issue, we might want someone to, deal with it, dispute of a charge. That sounds pretty serious. We might want to build a separate workflow. So you can begin to think about how powerful was something like this if you had this tool in your business. Before a human would make a decision, okay, it's this and then this, but like with make.com, you can really do some cool things, especially powered with Chatgpt. So I just want to wrap up with the different styles of prompting, and I'm hoping that as I explain this, this is going to further give you more ideas for how you can improve your workflows where you have ChatGPT or where you have another form of an AI model that is helping you. And let's just jump into it, right? So we've got zero-shot prompting. So the context of this is basically in the scenario where you're providing very limited training information for how you want that response to look like. You're pretty much just relying on the power of the model to come up with a response. So this is really useful when, when you're working with ChatGPT. You pretty much don't need to give it much context and it'll come up with an answer, which makes it so powerful, I guess, right? So especially when you're asking it questions where you don't know what the output is, you're trying to discover an outcome, right? So this is something just to be aware of, that, providing context is good, but also sometimes not providing context, you might go on a journey to discover an answer. You might go on a journey to discover an output that you are not looking for in the first place. So really that's one style. The next one is few shot prompting, right? So we're really just going into the depth of getting a very fine-tuned response based on a result that we have previously received. So we would put that at that system layer in the prompt, and we would maybe put some examples of good examples that we've seen in the past for an output of that prompt. And this is going to further just improve the level of quality that we receive in the overall prompt, right? The next one is chain of thought prompting. So this is when I think we worked through this, right? Which is we had a specific task and we broke down the individual steps. And on step 2, we wanted the information to be summarized in a specific sentence. And then step 3, we asked it to make sure that that sentence was 30 to 50 words. And we're really just getting into the specific reasoning and the logic around how we want a specific response to look like, right? So this is just really useful just because, when you're working with these models, they want to come up with an answer straight away. And when you ask it to follow a specific rule set or a specific set of instructions, then you'll get a more consistent answer. So it's just something to explore, right? And then the last one is prompt chaining. I guess I shouldn't say it's the last one. There are many different styles of prompting, but this is another example where we can, like, let's say we take a prompt and we classify some information and we get a response that says, classify if this is good or bad, and then it might say it's bad. And then based on that response, we might want it to flow into a different prompt or flow into a different output or a result, right? So the benefit here is that we can follow a specific logic, a specific flow, a specific workflow. And this is what I guess make.com allows you to do very easily. I mean, you can kind of see when I worked through that example, that was just one. That was just one, right? I'm just using ChatGPT to classify information. But imagine, a whole series of different modules or ChatGPT modules that is helping with, responding to specific queries. That's helping with classifying very high priority queries. That is really just kind of working together, right? And I think it's important to play with these different models and then also chain them together in specific ways to achieve our specific use case. So, yeah, there you have it. So, I'm going to conclude with that. There is so much to learn about prompt engineering and getting better at structuring your prompts. The most practical advice I can offer is to just basically play with it, experiment with it, and keep building workflows with Make. And you will get very far without having to write a single line of code. So, with that, thank you and see you in the next video.